Hey there friends, it's Dominique from the Pixie Planner. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. If you are new here, thank you for stopping by. I would greatly appreciate it if you'd consider subscribing to my channel and becoming a part of this family. So what I want to introduce you to is the whole setup process of the Mäksēlife goal setting system that I recently did a video on. I did a thorough walkthrough and discussion of the different parts of this, so I'm not going to do anything along the lines of that today. I will link the video in the cards if you want to see a more detailed walkthrough of everything. But in the video, I discussed the 5 steps to getting started and setting yourself up for the new year. So the Mäksēlife Planner is a goal system and weekly planner in one. So the beginning pages you have for your goal setting. And the great thing about this is it's not crazy overwhelming. There aren't, a gazillion pages to fill out. It's still very detailed, but really gets straight to the point so you can just dive right in. So what I want to do today is go over step 1 and 2, and over the next couple of weeks, videos that I release, I'm going to go through the other steps 3, 4, and 5. That way you have the step-by-step process of filling out your goals in preparation for 2020, since it's really right around the corner. So let's jump right into step 1 and 2. Now, if you did watch my review of this planner, you'll have already seen I did the compass assessment and I walked you through a little bit of how that worked. So I'm not going to spend as much time on the compass assessment, but I am going to be doing the setting of my intentions with you guys from start to finish in this video. So let's turn to the compass assessment first. And so with this, you are looking at the life compass, and it has down here on the bottom left the steps that you need to take in order to come up with your rating. So for step 1, on the following pages, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for how well each statement applies to you. So turning the page, this is what it's referring to. You have 8 sections here for 8 different areas of your life. And so you can see my examples here. So from 1 to 10, I read through each statement, and 1 would be it does not apply to my life, and then 10 would be it strongly applies to my life. So I have the personal section here, which I scored a lot better than I thought. Obviously, the higher the score, the better. But we're not looking for perfection here. We really want to stay honest with our, thoughts and feelings for these particular areas. So I would rather rate myself a little bit lower, maybe kind of say, I feel like my basic needs are taken care of pretty much 100%, but I didn't want to put, a 10 out of 10 there, because there's always something, some little wiggle room there, and there's always something to improve on, no matter how good you think you are or feel you are in a particular area. So I took that into consideration with all of these different areas of life. So what you do after you go through and give your rating, that 1 to 10 in every single one of these areas, you then, step 2, add up your ratings and divide that number by 8 to arrive at an average score. So here under personal score, this is my number for all of it added up. And then I took that number and divided it by 8, because you have the 8 different sections of life. So I just kind of wrote the big number in the blank space and then circled my actual average. So once you get these average numbers, you will also notice that when you're dividing some of these, they are not going to come out even. Like you might get a 6.3, whatever. So instead of rounding up, I decided to round down. And again, it kind of goes with, I'd rather have a lower number to start with, because I'm going to want to work on these areas as best as I can. So to me, starting off with a little bit less that doesn't bother me, because I'm going to give it my all. You know, that is the whole point in evaluating your areas of life. It doesn't hurt to just try a little bit better then. So I rounded down instead of rounding up. But once again, I got these averages. Step 3 is to fill in the section on the compass, on the life compass, that corresponds with your score. Each area will have different parts of the pie shaded in that coincide with the rating you've given to that area of life. And then it says reference the example. This is the example that she gives. And so you can't really see that well, but what I did is I took a gray colored pencil, and that's what I used to kind of shade in the particular, you know, pie chart here. And then I went ahead and I circled the number that I would like to be at by the end of the year. So, and it has, here's the final step. Consider what you would like to score yourself in each area of life by the end of the year, then circle that number on your compass. Okay, and so for me, example, for the personal section, I scored 8. And I went ahead and I circled a 9. I don't expect myself to be a 10 on any of these. You know, going back again, there is always room to improve in your life. It is never going to be perfect. It starts with being aware of the things that you would like to improve on, or what is really meaning the most to you in that particular season of your life. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for improvement and becoming more aware on what our values are and what truly makes us happy in life. So I'm not trying for a 10, and I recommend that you don't do that either, because, you know, that I already said it all, but it's up to you. Ultimately, it is what works for you, and you're gonna do you and stick with that. Now, when it comes to the areas where I scored a little bit lower, that is fun and recreation for me. And I scored actually a 6, and then I circled an 8. Now, I scored lower because my husband and I rarely take vacation. And it's been kind of like this ongoing joke, even at work. My boss is constantly, you know, asking me when I'm taking my vacation. I have all of my time off still left, and it's almost the end of the year. So when it comes to just kind of like kicking back, relaxing, doing a spur of the moment trip, or just, you know, having those moments where you want to have new experiences, I tend to work a lot, and my husband does too, and we don't take advantage of, you know, throwing the fun mixed in. So that was a little bit lower for me. My health and wellness was a little lower. I scored a 5. I want to be at an 8, and that is because my eating habits have been really poor, lots of sugar and sweets, and I have not been working out very much at all the past few months. We do have a new puppy, and so other things tied in. I need to get back on track with health and wellness. And then physical environment is another area where I scored lower, and it was a 6 that I got. I want to be at an 8, and that is because there are a few areas in our home that we've been needing to declutter, and we have really been putting that off for like the past couple of years. And I'm not feeling joy when I walk into these spaces, because there's items that I no longer use that I want to get rid of, but I'm just leaving there. It seems like a cluttered mess in my brain. My mind feels cluttered when I'm in those rooms. So that's an area that I want to improve on as well. So this sums up the life compass. So this is the compass assessment, which is step 1. And from there, we're gonna go into the intentions here. So this is what I am going to be writing out with you guys. And when we work through the intentions here, we're asking ourselves, you know, what we could do more or less of within this next year, habits that we're wanting to cultivate, and also what you're looking at for your word of the year for 2020. I already worked a little bit on this before, you know, popping on here, just because I wanted to have, I'm so indecisive. And if I came on the camera and just read this just straight with you guys before like going through it, I would sit here and be twiddling my thumbs because there's so many things that pop into mind and I have a hard time like narrowing it down. So I took some time to read it and then process it. And so like I read this yesterday, and over the past 24 hours, I've been just kind of processing this. And so now I have my thoughts that I want to lay down onto paper. And I can do that without boring you guys with my indecisiveness. So let's go ahead and fill this out. And I'm gonna be using my trusty Pilot V5 Precise. This is a fantastic pen for this planner. And I did do a pen test in my video where I walked you through just the whole breakdown of this. So you'll see some other planners that I also really enjoy. But let's jump in. Okay, so for intentions first, what could I use more of in my life this year? Again, there's so many things that we could all use more of, but I thought back about this past year and the things that stood out to me, especially after doing my compass assessment. I was just talking to you about my fun and recreation being a lower score than I would like. So when I think of what I could use more of in my life this year, you know, firstly, that's going to be weekend getaways. And, you know, my husband and I live in Maine, and it is just absolutely gorgeous year round. And there's no reason for us to not take advantage of it. So we're going to try to do some more weekend getaways. Another one, which I again thought about over the past year, my husband and I had a pretty tough year. We lost our English bulldog. We are just kind of really hitting it hard with our finances and budgeting, and it's been just a very serious year for us. It hasn't been much play, much fun with kind of those things intertwined. So I want to make sure that I'm spending more quality time with him. And I talked to him about this the other day. I have a hard time writing and talking at the same time. But I talked to him about this the other day. I want to try to do like more fun activities like going candlepin bowling or going somewhere to play darts or picking up some card games at home or doing jigsaw puzzles. You know, something that gets us away from the TV, because we are huge TV and movie lovers, and I mean, we can binge watch for days. But I want to try to find some other ways to spend quality time with my husband. And then the third one, and I'm kind of leaving it to just 3 things. There's a lot that I could write in here, but for just 3, I am putting that I am going to do more of living in the present. And I don't know, tell me, are you someone who has a hard time about living in the present because you are so focused on being prepared for what could potentially happen in the future? Like, that is me. I like to be prepared. I like to be ahead of the game, but that often means that I'm missing out of all the great stuff that is happening right now. So let me know down below if you're someone that does the same thing, because sometimes I feel alone, but I know I'm not. So that is something where I'm going to make this really stand at the forefront. So these 3 things is definitely, these are things that I could use more of in my life this coming up year. Let's move on to what could I use less of in my life this year. So big one for me is less screen time, and that is going to be kind of TV, phone, you know, all of that. I want to be more in person with friends and family and, you know, my husband. So screen time is what I would like to do, you know, less of. Also, less poor eating habits. That's another big one. And I'm going to be setting some of my goals up around that. Then I have less mindless, there we go, less and less spending, because I am very much hammering hard on my budget and savings goals. So it's easy for me to see that there is extra money and, oh, maybe I can buy myself this one little thing this time. But in reality, it's tough for me, at least, because it kind of gets that ball going if I let myself go too lax on my budgeting. So mindless spending, and then also living in the future, like I was just talking about. So I need to do less of that as well. Okay, next, what characteristics would I like to nurture in 2020? So with characteristics here, this is an area where I'm going to leave this blank because I want to think more on it. And that's the nice thing about doing this prep work a little in advance. You know, if you're not sure, just leave it blank. Go to the next one. And for me, there's just a lot that I have, and I want to just take a little bit extra time to figure that out. So I'm not going to stress about not knowing the answer for that. I'm just going to go to the next one, and then who knows, maybe tomorrow this will just pop into my head and it'll be with me not stressing about it. It'll naturally come. So I'm going to revisit that one, and we're going to move to 3 habits I want to cultivate this year are. And so I was talking about my budget. So what I want to try to do in order to stay on top of my budget and not allow myself the temptation for that mindless spending, I want to start checking in weekly. I do a paycheck to paycheck budget, and I will link a video, my recent video, up in the cards because I talked a little bit about what changes I've made. So I budget every 2 weeks. I give myself an allowance for my food spending and personal spending that comes out of each of those paychecks. So every 2 weeks. But I find that if I'm going the 2 weeks and just budgeting at the end of the 2 weeks, it's not working quite as well as I would like it. So I'm going to start doing check-ins weekly. And so that is going to be weekly budget check-in. Okay, that's going to be an important one for me. And then number 2, no sweets. I'm trying to fix my diet here. So my sweet tooth is out of control, like no joke. Every single day I have to have something. So no sweets. Now I'm not going from like 100 to 0. I am going to make sure that I'm doing maybe 3 to 4 days a week. Okay, so I'm starting with those baby steps. And then number 3, in order for me to be a little bit more present and have that quality time I'm looking for with my husband and family and friends, I'm going to make sure that our phones are down by 8 p.m. every night. Okay, so... And, you know, phones down, that can be like, maybe I might designate a drawer, you know, that we have to put our phones in by 8 p.m. That way, out of sight, out of mind. But that is something that I'm sticking with. Now we go to this year, I will be more. And as I was thinking of this one, and it's going to kind of go along with my word too, I was finding a lot of what I'm thinking of is being more accepting of other people's mistakes, my mistakes, just more of like, no one is perfect. So we can very, very much get wrapped into this whole perfectionism issue. And so this year, I want to make sure that I am more accepting of the mistakes I make. This is a little crammed in here, but that is okay. And I'm going to learn to delegate to others in order to reduce my anxiety. I have a big problem with anxiety, and a lot of it is because I am a perfectionist in a way, and I want to be able to take care of these things, and I like it when people know that I'm capable of doing these things. But at the same time, this is what stirs me up, and my husband offers all the time to certainly do his share of housework and things like that. But of course, like, my mind is like, well, it's not going to be done the way I would like it to be done, so let me just do it. And that's stupid. Like, there's no reason for me to find it that important to where, I won't allow my husband to help me when I know that could reduce my anxiety. So this is something where I am really going to start hitting hard, and I talked to my husband about this as well. I need to learn to delegate to him, to others, to take a little bit off of my plate, so that way I can better manage my anxiety. And I'm going to really try to be aware of, my judgment towards myself or even others when there's mistakes, and I need to accept that mistakes are going to happen. We are not perfect. So this is what I am going to be doing more of this coming up year. And then I will do less, keeping this super simple. It's going to be less worry or worrying about the things I can't control. So again, going into how I'm constantly living in the future, there is no reason for me to stress myself out and give myself more anxiety over the things that I cannot control. I cannot control the weather. I cannot control what is going to happen to those that I love. I have some control. I can kind of guide a little bit for the better, but the things that I just cannot control, I need to learn to just let it go, let it be. So that is what I'm going to be doing less of. Moving on to, I will give myself grace for, this is going to be not being perfect with my budget. It's about being more aware and learning. So when it comes to my budget, something that I tend to beat myself up about is when the numbers don't match perfectly. Or feeling stressed and overwhelmed that I slacked off on, tracking my spending, and now I got to sit there at the table with all my receipts and try to figure out what day was, what. And so when it comes to budgeting, I've finally come to the realization that for me, at least, I don't want to worry about having those perfect zeroed out numbers. I want this process to be about me becoming more aware of my spending habits and learning to control them, and to be more on top of what I am really trying to gain in life. So I want to gain financial independence. And along the way, I am learning how this is best going to work for me. I'm becoming more aware of my issues with money that I had in the past. And I've come a long way. So ultimately, even though it has not been perfect, I have missed months of tracking, I have made huge gains. So I'm giving myself grace for not being perfect with that area of my life. Now, I will let go of, this is going to be more of, when I think of my mistakes, I really dwell on it, and I have a hard time of letting go of those thoughts. So this is going to be something where I'm going to write, I'm letting go of dwelling on my past mistakes. They do not define me. All right, and tell yourself that. This is something where we all need to hear it. Everyone makes mistakes. I tell myself this all the time, and I know that I struggle with accepting it. But again, you know, this is what's so nice, because these intentions, you're going to be able to look back at this throughout the year and have that reminder of, okay, what is it that I'm setting out to do this year? This is a huge one. Pretty much every day of my life, I have had this in the back of my mind. So I need to let go of what has happened in the past, because it's only going to hinder my improvements for my future and the progress that I will make to becoming a better person, a better wife, a better daughter, you know, all of the above. It does not define who I am and what I will become as I go through the years. So I'm letting go of those past mistakes. I will embrace, and this is where I'm going with the whole mistake, you know, kind of focus, how we're not all perfect. So I'm going to embrace all of my flaws. So that is going to be not only just my mistakes with my everyday life activities, but also as I'm getting older, I'm seeing changes that weren't there before. And you know what? It's absolutely a beautiful thing. So these areas, whether it be new wrinkles popping up or a new fat roll on the side or whatever it might be, that is what is making me. No other person has those exact things. It's always different. And of course, just to be happy that I have this body, that I have this life, is the most important thing. So I'm done trying to cover up and fix these areas that I am not comfortable with, because they are not bad. In my mind, it's horrendous, but ultimately, I'm my worst critic. And I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. We are always our worst critic. Embrace your flaws. They're beautiful. It's what makes you you. So I am giving myself that reminder. Now, lastly, it has here, reflecting on your answers to the questions above, brainstorm a list of words that resonate with you and encompass what you see as an ideal year ahead. Narrow your chance to a single, or your choice to a single word that embodies all of your intentions. Make sure your word inspires you and is something that you can commit to fully. Your chosen word will serve as a guidepost for your priorities and the decisions you will make in the coming year. So after going through all of this, what really stands out to me is embrace. And the reason why it just really stands out to me is because there's so much that I am going to be learning to embrace for 2020. I am going to learn to embrace the importance of quality time with, friends and family by living in the present. So embrace what I have here and now. Also, when it comes to, my body, you know, embrace it the way it is, accept myself for my flaws, accept myself for even the flaws that aren't necessarily physical, but also within my own personality, and it's what makes me me. So learning to embrace that, and also learning to embrace letting go of control, and that goes along with, you know, learning to delegate to others in order to reduce my anxiety. So a lot of this is really embracing different areas of my life in 2020 to reduce anxiety, improve the quality time that I want with my loved ones, to improve myself mentally and physically, and to also improve my mind, my mental health as well. So for word of the year, that is exactly what I am going to have. Okay, so embrace. Now, I just kind of babbled right there about what my word means to me, so I'm not going to bore you by writing that out, but that ultimately is what my focus is going to be on. Okay guys, so that is how I went ahead and I set up for step 2, setting intentions. My next video, I'm going to cover step 3, which is annual goals and vision. So I hope you enjoyed this little walkthrough of the first 2 steps, and I'm really excited to do each of these steps for you in separate videos, so that way it's broken down and not quite as much information thrown at you at once. And I'm super excited to jump into this for the new year. I did mention that this is going to be in my planner lineup for 2020, and I can't wait to show you more about how I make use of it. So if you have any questions for me, leave them down below. And as always, I appreciate you guys so very much, and I will see you again soon in my next video. Bye.